Welcome back, Superstar. This is the How to Create a Webinar That Sells mini course part 3. And in this video, we're going to start creating your webinar, talking about your topic, your title, and your description. Let's go. One of the biggest challenges that I've faced and that I've seen other people face as they're using webinars to market their programs and services is that no one shows up to the webinar, or the wrong people show up to the webinar, people that don't buy. And so from the very beginning, we want to set ourselves up for success. And one of the first ways that we do that is by having a really compelling topic, title, and description. We want to strategically design your webinar to pull in, to attract the right people, people who really want and need what you offer, and who are going to sit through the entire webinar, be really engaged, and at the end are going to raise their hand and say, yes, what's next? I'm in. So we want to start with what they know they want and need. And I know that that might seem obvious, but one of the challenges that I've seen is that oftentimes we get confused in the different problems that people face. Here's what I mean. I like to divide people's problems into 3 types. Our ideal client's problems. There's the problem that they know and admit, the problem they know and they don't admit, and the problem they don't even know they have. So let's dive a little deeper into these. The problem that our ideal clients know and admit is the problem that they're looking for a solution to. It's the thing that they're up at night maybe Googling, right? So I'll use my business as an example, right? Most of my ideal clients, they want to grow their business. They want to grow their business. They want to scale. They want to make more money. And they want to do it in a way that's joyful and fulfilling. They have a resistance to growing their business while sacrificing themselves in the process. Beautiful. That's what they're looking for. How to scale, how to leverage myself, how to delegate, right? They're looking for all these ways to grow and scale without taking more time and effort and energy. Now, the problem that people don't admit is usually how it makes them feel. It's the emotional problem. It's how they feel about this thing. You know, my clients, to use me as an example again, they might feel like, wow, what if I can't do this? What if I'm not good enough? What if I'm not worthy? They have worthiness issues, or they might feel like it's too hard and they feel discouraged and frustrated, or they might have a little bit of imposter syndrome and, feel like they're trying to be more than they really are, etc. So these are some of the emotional things that they deal with. And then the third thing is the blind spot. The blind spot is the problem people don't even know they have. That's the problem we want to enlighten people to inside your webinar. But I bring this up now because a lot of people try to title their webinar around the blind spot, which people don't even know they have, so they're not going to be attracted to it. So again, let's use my thing as an example. People don't realize that what they need is a new business model. They need monthly recurring revenues, right? So what I do is, instead of positioning my webinar around the blind spot that they don't even know that they want and need, or what the real problem is, I position it around how to grow your business, how to increase your brand, how to attract more clients, how to build a big back end with more revenue from your business. And those are the things that you want to, as you do this, you want to think about positioning your webinar around the thing that they know they want, and then inside of the webinar, enlighten them about what they actually need. So for example, another example, I do a lot around retreats, right? People want to run retreats. They want to have retreats for living. They want to go around the world leading these amazing retreats and leading groups of people. And what they don't realize is that that is a ton of work. And it can feel very exhausting if all you're doing is running retreats all the time. So the blind spot, the solution that I introduce inside the webinar is, hey, you do a retreat and then you enroll people into a full year of retreats. You enroll them into a full year program. That's the solution. And then the next step from the webinar is, hey, if you want to learn how to do this, let's work together. Here's my program. Here's my product, my offering, Retreats to Riches, or come to one of my retreats. Those are the offers that solve that problem of, hey, how do you build that big back end? Is this making sense? I hope it is. Now, before I dive into how you can create your topic title and description, I want to offer you the opportunity to subscribe to my channel. Please like my video and maybe even throw down a comment below. So let's start with the topic, because the topic's going to inform everything. You want to pick a topic that speaks to the thing that they want and maybe hints at the blind spot that they don't even know they have. So when you look at your ideal client and you think about the work that you do with them, what is the aha moment that they have to have before they're ready to invest in your product or service? So for example, I have a client, Marianne Durst. She's been on this channel. You've seen me talk to her. She uses masterclasses a lot to promote her products and services. She has a course, her influence course, that's aimed at nonprofits. And that's what she's ultimately selling. So when she's doing her masterclass, she's not leading with, hey, buy my influence course or learn about influence, because people don't even realize that that's the problem they have. That's in their blind spot. What she leads with are topics like how to raise more money for your nonprofit, right? Because these are the things that are keeping these nonprofits up at night. How to have better donors, how to have donors that want to give to you even in lean times. I'm making some of these up. But generally speaking, if you go out and check out Marianne Durst's, if you get on her email list, if you check out what she's doing, she's leading with the problems that these nonprofits have. But then in the masterclass, she's showing them that the real problem is influence. Or she's showing them that the real problem is that they're not asking the right way, that they're asking the wrong questions. So she teaches them that in the webinar, and then now they're primed. Now they understand what the real problem is. Now they're open and interested in her influence course, which is the next step. So to that end, once you have that topic, now you need a really exciting title. My favorite kinds of titles have how-to in them. I feel like for masterclasses, webinars, virtual workshops, how-to something is a very exciting and very compelling value proposition. So I love coming up with something like a fun title and then the subtitle, How to XX. Now you might want to have something like how to have this outcome without this thing that you know they don't want to need. So for example, Leanne Marie Webster, her title is How to Use Email Marketing Without Being Sleazy, Cheesy, or Salesy, or something like that, right? So how to do this thing without this yucky thing that we don't want. That's a really awesome title template that you can also use. So like Leanne's, her title is Totally Telesummits, How to Use Email Marketing Without Being Sleazy, Cheesy, Salesy, right? So think about for your topic, sometimes I even start with the subtitle and then add the title on top of it. And the title on top of it can be something cute like Retreats to Riches or Small Events, Big Money, or Small Events, Big Profit, or something like that. And one thing you want to do is run the title test that I learned from Rory Vaden. Rory Vaden is a superstar brand expert, speaker, New York Times author, best-selling author. And he says that you want to always ask, do people want that? So for example, if you name your thing Retreats to Riches, like the name of my course, it's I want Retreats to Riches. Does it pass the title test? Is the answer to that probably yes? Yes, people want Retreats to Riches. Boom, good title test. You don't want to have something like, the fear equation, right? Like even if you're helping people overcome fear, the fear equation, how to overcome fear, the fear equation is, do I want the fear equation? Not so much, right? So you want something that's aspirational, a title that makes people nod their head, yes, I want that. And then finally, you need a really solid description. And my favorite way to do a description is instead of writing a paragraph, which honestly, people hardly read paragraphs anymore, this is gonna go on your landing page. So I recommend 3 to 5 bullet points of the outcomes that your webinar is going to generate. You're going to learn about how influence makes you a more powerful leader. Well, that's kind of a weak value proposition because learn how is kind of a weak value proposition. People want to get stuff done. They want to complete something. They want to discover something. So find the most powerful verbs you can and make your titles based on those. So here's some example. I'm going to read from my own bullet points so that you can get an idea of what these sound like. We want to focus on the outcome, not the medicine to get there. So here's some examples. So diagnose your biggest obstacle to expansion, AKA business model rehab. So diagnose your biggest obstacle to expansion. That's really juicy because people have a fear of what they don't know, what's in their blind spot. Like, what is my biggest obstacle to expansion? And the word diagnose is powerful. Instead of learn what the biggest obstacles to expansion are. That's, okay, but diagnose your biggest obstacle to expansion is a much juicier value proposition. So just language. Here's another one. Discover a graceful 3-part framework to turn one-time events into long-term recurring revenues. So discover is much juicier than learn a 3-part framework, right? Discover. So you want to use your juiciest verbs. Here's another one. Explore the 4 breakthroughs that clients seek and identify which one you provide, right? So again, bringing it all the way back to them and what they're going to discover for themselves. So that's one of the mistakes I see people make when they're describing their webinars. They keep it very generic and broad. And what you want to do is bring it back to that one person, right? You're going to discover your specific breakthrough that you provide. So if you want an example of a webinar page, and I've spent years perfecting my webinar page, improving the conversions. We have a landing page conversion of about 60%. So 60% of the people that land on this page actually register. And I've had landing pages that convert actually much higher. But what I found is that sometimes the ones that convert much higher, they're not the ideal people. So, it's a balancing act to really make sure that the webinar is targeted to the right people. So if you want an example of my landing page that's been, iterated over the years, it's bigbackendwebinar.com. You can check that out.